Do you think that you'll be in Kneecap for the rest of your lives?
What did I do in a past life to deserve this?
Kneecap's like the Hotel California.
What? What?
You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Kneecap, welcome to Bullseye. It's so nice to have the three of you on the show, and congratulations on your new record.
Thanks very much. We're glad to be here.
Thank you.
Próvaí, you are wearing a balaclava in the studio. Our radio audience can't see it.
Yeah.
How long is the longest that you've worn the balaclava in one stretch?
Oh, it's probably last weekend. I had a mad weekend of BDS.
BDS?
Listening to some Korean music. K-pop. It's probably been a few hours anyway. It's definitely 2.5 hours.
Do you move towards performance fabrics over time? Like originally it's inch thick wool, and then later on it's something wicking?
Yeah, there should be a progression into that, you know, like kind of find out what Daft Punk used to do with their helmets and get some kind of lining that's got a cool down system, like a refrigeration system. But no, it's just the same old one that I had from the start.
It
so
stinks.
It's still as warm, it's still as sweaty.
You can imagine how it smells after a tour.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
You guys are in an Irish language radio station in Belfast right now,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Radio Falcha.
107.1.
That was a station that your management requested we set you up in, or recommended we set you up in. What's your relationship to it?
My father, my dad, he would have been involved with the foundation of the radio station, along with a lot of other people in the community. This started, I'm not actually sure what year Radio Falcha started, but it started off, I think it started as a pirate radio station originally with a license. And Allegedly. Just kind of when the Irish language community was growing. The radio was another extension of the community here. It was also, we had a cultural centre, the Colonial, that was established, and the schools were coming. There's more people speaking Irish, so that was kind of the connection we had here. And me and Chara actually had our own radio station in here.
A radio show.
Sorry, our own station.
Pirate.
But we had our own radio show here in Radio Falcha before pre-Kneecap, and definitely contributed to the foundation of Kneecap.
Yep.
So that was a connection. My mother also worked here, and everybody, if you speak Irish, everybody has a programme here on Radio Falcha. It's the rules.
It's like a
You're
rite of
roped into
passage.
half an hour at least once.
Yeah, Próvaí had a radio show here as well.
Yeah, it was called Rave Lodge, The Revolution. There's nothing really revolutionary about it, but it sounded cool as a name.
When you guys were kids, did the community around Irish speaking seem cool or seem corny and annoying because it was your parents and, community centers?
I grew up speaking Irish. I'd say it was a bit, you don't want to stand out too much when you're 12 years old or 13 years old. So there wasn't as many speakers, I think, as there is now. I think back when, I didn't grow up that long ago, but I think that the Irish language community has grown exponentially in the last 10 years, 20 years. So I think definitely when I was 12, the thing about the Irish language, it was still growing. It wasn't seen in contemporary spaces. It wasn't seen in the cinema or on the radio or on the BBC. So when you're a teenager and you're not seeing it in these places that you aspire to or look up to, or not in mainstream media, you kind of feel like, oh, maybe this is a bit odd. Maybe, that they're not worthy. The Irish language isn't worthy to be in these spaces. But I think now that we've seen, our movie came out in the cinema, and before our movie there was in Colleen, which actually I think they made it to the Oscars, and there's a lot more musicians like using the Irish language, and it's seen a lot more. So I feel like if you're an Irish speaker, a young Irish speaker, that you feel a lot more seen now, and it's a lot more. I think there is more attraction to it now for young people.
Yeah, I think definitely growing up, because it had such a punk ethos to it, you know, that you know, it was never funded by the state. It was all very, you know, grassroots, and everybody, you know, we all realised, well, not us, but you know, the community that we're from realised that the state wasn't going to do anything for you of their own will. So people kind of just built things themselves, radio stations, houses, Gaeltachts, and to me, no matter how young I was, I always thought that was pretty cool.
My stepmother is of your parents' generation and grew up in West Belfast. And when she talks about speaking Irish, it's usually about getting shipped off in the summer to Donegal, going to obviously I'm very American, but going to like Irish themed summer camp where she was conscripted into like speaking Irish and playing penny whistles. You know what I mean?
It's very American terms here.
Yeah.
Conscripted.
McDisneyland, conscripted into penny whistles.
McGilta.
Like, I choose that language advisedly because on the one hand, like, this was so central to her cultural identity. You know, that's the reason that they were doing it. And it was also exciting to her to go to one of the most beautiful places in the world and, get to go anywhere because she had a lot of siblings and only one parent. Mm-hmm. But also there was an element, at least in her retelling, of kind of eye roll of like, I get it, we're all going to go play tin whistles and sing traditional songs and be forced to speak Irish, to prove how Irish we are. You guys are from the generation after that. You're from her generation's kids. How is it different for people your age who grew up in a situation where they may have been speaking Irish in school in the north of Ireland, for example?
I think a big part of it was, there was like the Irish school that we went to. It's the biggest Irish school in the whole country. And there was more and more people kind of enrolling in the school every year. But for some reason, it wasn't really developing socially as quickly as pupils were going to the school. So they realised there was a real lack of kind of, the language wasn't being seen in any kind of mainstream scenarios or, socially too often. So obviously they started a lot of youth clubs and kids had somewhere to go to use the language informally, and it wasn't just in a classroom. So you had that. There was a big push on youth clubs and kind of socialising rather than the language just being, constrained to a classroom. And then also you have, like, as he said, Colin Kuhn, you have like people like us and other kind of bands and stuff in Ireland that are using the language. So now people can kind of be like, I relate to that band, they're using my native language, and it's a lot more seen and a lot more visible now. So I think that's had a big effect on normalising the stigma of speaking Irish, because I think with any colonial language, that there's this sort of colonial shame that is left with the language and culture, because for 800 years you're told that it's worthless. So I think now that's kind of changed and people are seeing, the intrinsic value to having your own language and it being seen and you feeling represented.
So Ray Len la Helle er war na Reblaje. Darns an air than a gale. I know. So.
Kain was Dini Aveoga, a lore and Changi. At least smallish and Kumilish and Kain was infrastructure social Aveoga.
Tashi Morby, Chelina Shashna, Yer in the Rio, Clayton, yet Catholic, Gale.
You're cocaine down, so down
What gave you the sort of temerity to think of yourselves as rappers? At what point in your life?
I don't know what went
Did
wrong.
you
that we
think-
thought.
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
I still don't feel. It still feels weird saying the like, rapper. I think we're too Irish. I think the thing with hip hop is it's like it's so in its core. It's like it's very different to maybe Irish culture because you know hip hop's very braggadocious. You're about being the best. Where in Ireland we're extremely self-deprecating and shy 9 times out of 10. But it does have quite a lot of similarities, as I said, with the storytelling, and it's the very, very, intrinsically anti-authoritarian and stuff. So there is similarities, but I don't know what cheek we thought to call ourselves rappers is ridiculous.
So we love the
I
talk.
wouldn't try it again.
We love talking and we love telling stories, and hip hop is the best genre. So we found a genre that we can keep talking and telling stories, and that was hip hop.
Hip hoppers.
When you wrote your first verses, like whatever, alone in your bedroom or at lunch in school, in a notebook, did you write in English or in Irish?
Well, the first song was in Irish.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would have wrote a wee bit in primary school, but I forgot all about that.
Do you have any? Do you remember it?
I'm not prepared. I would have wrote. Actually, I forgot all about this until basically someone asked me when, like, on one of the interviews, when did you start? And then I kind of remembered, obviously, in primary school, me and a few of the lads would have wrote a wee bit, but obviously it wasn't too seriously. I was in 10 years of age. But so when we decided to do Kneecap, obviously, because we speak Irish together, all of our friends speak Irish, and that's just how we socialise. It wasn't like a big conscious decision to start doing it in the Irish language. It's just when we decided to do Kneecap, it was just that was organically going to be in Irish because that's how we socialised. So yeah, we did. It was in the attic, stoned out, and yeah, it was one of them ones that hadn't really been. There was a few people like Seamus Barra and stuff who were doing it in Irish, but I feel like I think hip hop, especially as something in the Irish language, it can be almost taken as parody, so we were trying to do that fine line of making sure it was kind of authentic to Belfast, but also not taking it too seriously because people can see right through that. Do you know what I mean? And that it wasn't who we are.
You got to take yourself serious, but not too serious. It's a very fine line.
How do you think the culture of Irish speaking was different in a pub in Belfast in the city than it was in on a grey rocky crag overlooking the ocean in Donegal?
It was nearly non-existent for a while. Like back in the day, like it wasn't that much spoken in urban settings. It wasn't really spoken in the pubs around Belfast because that lineage, that kind of generational break happened in people being able to learn it. And so there was only certain places you could learn it, and people were going through the middle of the Troubles at the time, and like when people are kind of hung up with trying to survive, they're looking after kind of survival first, and then language and culture kind of takes a back seat, unfortunately. But I think it was seen then as well as a method of resistance. People being able to use the language to kind of, right, this is our culture, and this is a way, a non-violent way that we can kind of reassert ourselves and reclaim who we are. So yeah, it probably, and a lot of those people went to that rocky place to learn the Irish. People used to go to the well, and the well was Donegal, it was Connemara, it was the islands, and that's where people went and learned the language and brought it back and taught it to the people in the urban settings and in those pubs. Now that's why you can walk around Belfast, you can walk around Derry, Dublin, and hear people speaking Irish a lot more than they would have been.
As people from the generation that grew up in the aftermath of the peace agreement, what was your relationship to the Troubles that had happened, that were at their hottest in the years before you were born?
I mean, it was obviously it's not like we grew up with the physical oppression of soldiers. Well, me anyway, maybe that's how a lad beside me can remember them. But we didn't grow up with that. Obviously, what you did have was the kind of vacuum there of whatever the trauma that certain like family members or whatever went through, that if we were going into the city centre or whatever, it was kind of like, it was always like, be careful or whatever, even though it wasn't too bad. Of course, there was still some political and sectarian violence happening, but again, we missed most of that. There was obviously different issues. We grew up, obviously big suicide issues, mental health issues and stuff that naturally occur after you know, post-conflict, you know. So that was a different kind of war that was on for our generation.
I'll never learn my lesson. Always be government's obsession. Talk of the time when I'm walking around, I don't want her gaff while I'm freshin'. Calling me Skevra whore. Never heard that said before. We hit the G, a girl reach, I've shed love and mostly been lying in bed before.
Smugglers and scholars, getting guns with American dollars. Did it before, did it again, though, but I don't need your help with internal.
I loved watching your movie Kneecap from a couple years ago, and which is a sort of like biopic in the way that it has a little bit of Purple Rain and a little bit of Spice World. Like it's a little bit, it's a little bit silly. Like everything happens, you know what I mean? Like everything is on screen all at once. It's such a great time. The director of the film was living in Belfast, but is English. What did you have to get to trust an English guy to tell your story that is so much about Irishness?
We're obviously very apprehensive whenever there's English people involved trying to profit off us. So we like to think that we have our guards up, but I think he just bought us a pint of Guinness each, and that was it. We were his.
We ignored him. I think we did ignore him for a while, because I think it was 2019 when he maybe emailed us first, and we were only a band for 2 years, so we're very skeptical of somebody who wants to make a movie.
We hadn't even really got our first album out at that point.
So it didn't really make sense. But yeah, as he said, he bought us a few lovely pints of Beamish Stout, and yeah, we started writing on the script then, and he was the man for it.
I mean, I heard him talk about it, and he was just like, I randomly went to this thing at a bar down the street from my house, and it was so great, I thought it should be a movie.
So he actually went and got his Irish passport after that as well.
Yeah, it worked well. You know, it was to his advantage that he was English for the first time ever. It was to his own advantage because he was looking from the outside, and he wasn't coming with any like predetermined ideas of like what Irish language should be or Irish culture. So that in that regard, he listened to us and what way we wanted to express our own identity and our own language. So that actually worked out very well.
One of the big differences between this movie and like Purple Rain is that you guys are good at acting. No shade to Prince, one of the greatest popular musicians of all time, and that movie, which rules, but he's not the strongest screen performer when he's not singing. And I wonder if you guys were scared to act on screen, even in playing yourselves?
There was the element there, I think there was that element there of the music, like trajectory of where we were going musically was going well. You know, it wasn't like we were, you know, kind of on the way down, that we needed to, you know, take this big risk to kind of, so we were doing very well, and this movie opportunity came along, and it was a huge risk because if we couldn't act, we'd be known, like it's sustained forever as that band that made that movie that one time. So obviously there was that kind of, there was that pressure there, but I think like obviously you have to take risks sometimes.
Not to interrupt, but like it's a type of movie where most of those movies are bad.
Biopics in general, I can't think of many good ones.
Yeah, it ruined the Beatles' career.
Yeah, I think the only saving grace for people's biopics is that they're normally dead and don't get to see how they are. Yeah, so it was a strange one, but obviously we had acting classes with Kieran Lagan. Shout out by Kieran Lagan, absolute legend. So we went and we did that for a while, and obviously that helped big time, you know.
Were there moments in the film that you were scared you were going to not just like do a bad job representing the band? Because I'm sure by the time the movie was going on to film, you felt pretty good about the script and stuff, but just worried that you would embarrass yourself as doing something that is not the main thing you do?
No, it was grand. It wasn't like there was a bit of pressure, I think, at the start, but see, once the first scene was the one of us digging out the back. We filmed that in Dundalk. That was the very first scene. What happened was, like, you know, we were on the healthy buzz for around 2 months. We didn't have a drink. We were training most days, you know, trying to look healthy for the screen. And then the production company put us up in a big hotel the night before with a free bar. And obviously, so we did so well, and then we just fell at the last hurdle. We were so hungover on the first day of filming, big puffy eyes. That was our first mistake of filming. And then, but the thing was, on that first scene as well, I think because nobody had ever seen us act. You had the whole production team, like costume, absolutely everybody was there, about 70 or 80 people watching our first scene to be like, are we in for a 7 weeks of hell here? Is this going to be or is it going to be all right? So I think we luckily very hungover, but won them over.
Yeah, and very luckily for us as well. I don't want to give away any industry secrets, but
it's not real.
It's in the edit, you know. So like, if we do something, we can do it again. It's not like real life. It's not like something like this. You say something stupid, and it's recorded forever for everybody to see. So.
One of the moments in the film that you guys made about your own lives that I enjoyed the most is at the top of the movie. There is a montage of you guys going to psychiatrists and getting prescriptions by describing intergenerational traumas.
Our history
has become
our biology.
It's like the trauma our ancestors suffered
has inserted itself.
Has actually inserted itself into our genetic code. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Psychological
reverberations. ADHD. ODD.
The troubles.
I've got troubles.
I just pray that this medicine grants me some relief.
Do you not think I'd be better off going straight in with the 500 milligrams?
It's great. It's a hoot. And there is like a certain currency to having a trump card to play of intergenerational trauma, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can just be like, well, yeah, but intergenerational trauma, you can't say anything about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm a victim.
On the other hand, like intergenerational trauma is like a really real thing. I grew up in a house where my American father and my Irish stepmother were bonded together by their post-traumatic stress disorder, I think. Mm-hmm. You know? Yeah. You guys grew up in a city where the generations before you were bonded together by traumas that they experienced for decades. Mm-hmm. How did that touch your life besides you know, helping color your ideological commitment to speaking Irish and being Irish?
I mean, that scene from that movie is obviously, it's us, you know, it's a lot of what we do is we have extreme versions or extreme scenarios that we play out in order, you know, to create dialogue for something. Like, I mean, we are one of the most prescribed areas in the United Kingdom, quote unquote, you know, and that obviously comes from, you know, post-conflict, you know, from the Troubles and stuff. It's very easy for people to get prescription meds here, and it is a massive issue here. It obviously is leading to a lot of mental health issues from people misusing them. So that's obviously why we put that in, and that is obviously a big part of what happens post-conflict. You know, there's that vacuum there, as I said, that yes, there was no physical British soldiers on the streets growing up, but there was that different kind of silent killer there. Do you know what I mean? So that's something obviously we like to, you know, obviously we're maybe on paper not too serious as people, but I think through art and stuff, it's important to kind of, you know, certain exaggerations. You see South Park and stuff do it all the time because it creates dialogue. Dialogue's important to tackle these issues and stuff. So that's obviously what we like to do. I think obviously we're running around masks and stuff on our faces and stuff. So take it with a pinch of salt. But we think that it's important now that we finally, you know, our generation is able to kind of, because we weren't touched physically, you know, by the war, it means we can kind of step back and we can, you know, build bridges through humour and through dialogue and stuff that maybe the generation before us never necessarily had.
How much pause did you have to make this record?
I think it was seven weeks or so altogether, roughly around 7 weeks. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't obviously...
It's a short break.
Well, yeah. And during that 7 weeks, we were in Streatham in London, Stretton, and we had the court case with Chara during them 7 weeks, and we also had a gig in Wembley Arena. So we had a pause and we had to unpause at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of bands are kind of get the luxury of maybe, you know, having all the things wrote over time, and then they go and they can spend 2 months in a nice studio and kind of like lock the doors, lower the blinds, and go on and enjoy themselves, you know what I mean, and have a kiki and get it all done. But like we were fortunately and unfortunately obviously dragged to court, and then also with a big show in the Wembley Arena, which obviously were two hindrances, but at the same time they were obviously big, you know, inspirations for certain songs. And then Dan Carey, the producer, he went to the Wembley Arena show, and he was in the middle of the crowd, and he was able to listen to, right, what are the sounds that are going to fill arenas on this album? You know, what's the kind of certain instruments or whatever it was. So these two things that were on paper a hindrance also added quite a bit to the process.
He sampled the crowd.
Yeah, and then outside the court case and stuff, obviously the crowd chanting "Free Chara" makes it onto Carnival and stuff. So it was a hindrance, of course, but we didn't let it go completely to waste.
Mo Chara, you stand before us in Westminster Magistrates Court, charged under the Terrorism Act of 2000. How do you plead?
Jeg kjente watching while you're running is a bystander. Og skårene kløtje ned med burhed, they can try slander. Med anjem of high standards. Ni med shit up, get there and aksjer som rasjå av vi on trial and Trump of and charges. That started at Coachella. Da lort vi faller sin fella. Samla alle tjente, this happens. If a man tries to tell you free guys and these lads are just nasty sentenced. Them get guys, the bloody terrorist bastards. There's a carnival coming to a town near you. Kneecap versus the crowds of
Makara, what was the court case that you were facing for folks who don't know?
Yeah, again, it's all out there. So I think I'm not going to talk about too much of it, but obviously it was terrorism related charges. But I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it because my lawyer hasn't had a good night's sleep, I'd say, in about a year and a half.
And the case was thrown out.
And yeah, exactly. And but it's all there. We've done statements and stuff about it. If you need any quotes, I'm sure you can grab there, or we can point you in the direction or something maybe.
It was a sort of case that's hard to imagine from the United States, where the right to free speech is in the Constitution. But I think that one of the things that it showed me was that, you know, this was a case that even under UK law, I think was a little ridiculous, and as you said, was eventually thrown out. But there is an extraordinary burden to being the target of the power of the state, even if the courts are going to protect you, like even if you win in the end.
Yeah, it was a bit ridiculous. Like, as we said, it was a carnival of distraction to what's actually going on. They spent, I believe, over £1 million. It's all taxpayers' money. I don't think they ever thought that they were going to win it. We knew that there was no chance of them winning. It was such a trumped up charge, such a ridiculous, that's more controversial what a band does on stage, taken out of context, by the way, to what, prime ministers or, the Israeli lobby do day to day, So it was a witch hunt, obviously. They used us as an example. I don't think it was even personal. I think it was just right time, right place for them to kind of use us as an example for any kind of artist or actor or whoever it was who was potentially on the fence about speaking up about Palestine, would obviously see this and what they threw at this, and would kind of be like, right, maybe for my own well-being I'll leave this off. And that was intentional. It was all by design why they did that. But again, very grateful for everybody that was involved and that came out to outside the courts and stuff, and all the support we got online, and also obviously the team of lawyers we had were just incredible. So it was amazing, everyone that helped, obviously, and we're glad it's over, but we didn't see any other result.
There must be so much joy in making anti-colonial music and getting to travel the world and connect with people who are so different from you but share this kind of need to express anti-colonialism and feel free of the burden of colonialism.
Yeah, I mean, we got to go to meet loads of people all around the world, and we were with Miss Kanina, supported us in Australia, who's from Tasmania, from Aboriginal Australia. That's, I think, with the movie and music and the movie especially, we thought the story of Kneecap was a story of Belfast or a story of the Irish language. We didn't think anybody outside of Belfast or Ireland would have resonated with them or would have cared about the movie. But we soon realised, as I was mentioning earlier, the story of colonisation is an international story, and that's something that connects us with people and something that we hope to kind of delve deeper in and build the connection and solidarity with people around the world.
Do you think that you'll be in Kneecap for the rest of your lives?
What did I do in a past life to deserve this?
Kneecap's like the Hotel California.
What? What?
There's only 10 of them.
It's a lobster pot, this group.
You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
I don't know. See, as long as there's a demand there. Yeah,
we're only starting off, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only getting started. You know.
Yeah.
Only first few years here. Still young.
Yep. As long as if you keep paying for it, I'll keep showing up.
Do you have the same enjoyment of each other that you had when you were friends at a social night at a pub?
No, we only get together contractually now. We've nothing left to say to each other. We know each other inside out. We just sit there in silence now.
Finish each other's
sandwiches.
I'm so grateful for your time, and DJ Próvaí, I'm going to give you the opportunity to get off microphone and take off that balaclava before it gets too swampy.
You couldn't afford it.
Kneecap, thank you so much for talking to me on Bullseye. It was so nice to get to talk to you.
Sign, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse. We appreciate it, mate.
Have a nice day. See you later. Salam. Love you.
Takken killen, je bedoel, I'm she in my seal crew.